we're off for a walk today, somewhere near Wareham, and as you can probably tell, there has been a bit of precipitation now for several weeks, so I have the basket with me. And if you're watching this video, it means we did find something, because I've done 2 empty basket foraging videos, and I think that's probably enough for you. So yeah, if this video exists, then it means we found something to take home and eat. I'm just going to have a look in here, because I've seen some fungi in here. I don't think they're ones I want to pick, but yeah, I don't even know what those are really. So there's those there. There are some more down here which look like they might be deceivers. Yeah, I would say they are deceivers of some sort. So I'm going to have a little wander through here and see what else we can maybe find in amongst this mostly pine woodland here. If not, there's plenty more space to wander down and have a look down there. We are at the moment only just off the beaten track, so it's, yeah, there is all to play for still. So now we're moving into a mixture of pine and beech. And we've got mossy banks, and the moss is looking very lush and verdant. However, there's a very low lying bit here, and I'm starting to see rushes, which might mean it's going to be too swampy to continue off the track. Big sinkhole here to my left. Okay, well I think I'll probably rejoin the track and we'll have another look in a minute. There's a couple of russulas here and something else down there as well. So a couple of russula, don't know what they are, but some species of russula, quite nibbled, but encouraging to see mature looking fruiting bodies of any fungus. So hopeful signs. Just down here it looks like we might be able to get into some more mixed woodland with some oak and maybe beech and stuff in it as well. So that's where I'm hoping we might find a bit more of a diversity of fungus that we can pick and eat. Right, now this is a hopeful sign here. Fly agaric, Amanita muscaria. Santa Claus is coming to town. This is often an indicator species that we will find seps in the vicinity. So I'm going to have a little scout around the perimeter here. Have a little look up in this bit of woodland here, because, well, I don't know whether it's just that these things like the same conditions as seps, or whether there's perhaps some symbiosis between the 2 species. I very often find them together. Today probably won't be that day though. But let's have a little wander up here, see what we can find up on this bank. Oh! I can't see anything here, but as I say, very often find those 2 things together, or used to anyway, in the New Forest, and this is a similar kind of biome here. Not today though, eh? Now I imagine if I wandered up through this bit here and amongst all the bracken, I might find some saffron milk caps, although it's a little late in the season for those. Interesting little collection of probably scarlet wax caps down here. Pretty little things. Now we may have gone from the conditions being too dry to being way too wet. unfortunately we had a fairly dry-ish summer and then a deluge over the last couple of weeks, and so it still might not be the favourable conditions for the kind of fungi I'm thinking I want to pick. Right, so here's a blusher, Amanita rubescens, very poor condition, but that's technically edible. The species is edible anyway. I tend to shy away from anything in the Amanita genus just because there are some really nasty poisonous ones in there, and the blusher, for example, is perhaps mix-upable with the panther cap, only if you're being careless, I suppose. But in any case, yeah, I tend to avoid the whole Amanita family. Mushroom racism, that's called. We've got down here some more deceivers, and I can confidently tell you that these here are LBMs, little brown mushrooms. So yeah, here's a few things we could pick, right? So there we go. That is, I'm fairly sure, a species of deceiver. So we could pick some of those. It's called deceiver because the appearance is variable. Not the deceiver name makes it sound like a dangerous mushroom, but it's called deceiver just because the appearance of the mushrooms in this genus is very variable. There's quite a few of them just down here if we're looking amongst the moss. So now we're into a different kind of habitat, so mixed deciduous here. I don't know what these yellow mushrooms are. Let's have a look at one of these. This yellowish thing. It's a guild mushroom. Yeah, I don't know what it is though. So we'll just leave that alone. But anyway, it's a hopeful sign. I mean, it looks a little bit to me like sulphur tuft, but there's not enough of them. Sulphur tuft you normally find in big clusters. I'm going to just try the app to see if I can get a clue on what that might be. So I tried the Seek app just to see if it could get me close to what these might be. The Seek nature identification app is not so great at fungi. Often if I meet a plant, a green plant that I don't recognise, it'll give me the right clue. Mushrooms, fungi, it generally doesn't even get close. And of course, as I've said in other videos previously, I would never rely on the app for identification as the sole source of identification for something I intended to eat. But the apps can be useful just to point you in the right direction so that you get a chance to actually try out, you know, look up other references, sort of narrow you down in the book and give you an idea, and then you can go and check out if that idea is correct or not. There's a very, very large sinkhole here. I think this might be Culpepper's dish. I don't think the magnitude of these sinkholes really comes across all that well on video, but that's a big hole. And these are sinkholes caused by underlying limestone. So this is all an acid heath on top of limestone or chalk underlayer, and so the acidic soil that percolates through the acidic heathland here over millennia dissolves away the limestone and creates a cavern, and then eventually that cavern collapses and forms a sinkhole such as we are seeing in front of us here. I'm not aware of any new sinkholes opening up in the news or anything like that, so I think this is something that probably has happened over very vast spans of time, and so it isn't a pertinent risk. Well, not a huge one anyway. Right, now this kind of terrain here is where I might expect to find yellow leg mushrooms. So the yellow leg chanterelle, trumpet chanterelle. We've got half buried logs and moss. I can see an amethyst deceiver just down here, a tiny little one, which I won't pick. There is some concern about amethyst deceivers being bioaccumulators of arsenic, but I think that's mainly only a problem if there's a concentration of arsenic in the soil, such as in mine tailings or mineral rich areas. This is not one of those areas. This is actually probably quite a mineral poor area. Anyway, I'm going to have a little wander across here, because these kind of little clearings in amongst this grassy stuff could be productive. We've got a mixture of trees here, and if we are looking for yellowleg chanterelles, they're not always immediately obvious. This, I think, is a common earth ball. It's a very unusual looking one. Kind of a wet egg. Perhaps I shouldn't spend too long looking inside of that. You can see some little yellow mushrooms down there, probably sulphur tuft. It's not looking good for the table this evening. Anyway, so nothing so far, but we'll have a little seat on this log here overlooking Culpeper's dish and have a bit of elevenses. Elevenses today consists of coffee, as always, a piece of almond cake. I made this cake with the egg whites left over from my carbonara. I'm still working on this recipe, so as soon as this recipe is kind of refined enough, I will post a version of it. This is good, but I got to tweak it a little bit more. And when this is ready, I will post my almond cake recipe on a video. It's a very nice cake, but I have a few ideas and it could be better. So the woods near Wareham were pretty much a bust. There were a few things we could have picked. There were some deceivers of various different varieties, but we didn't pick anything that day. So today is another day. That's why this video even exists. The fact that you're seeing this video means we did pick something for the table. So we've come to a different location today. Different kind of biome. There's a lot of beach here. It's a bit more open woodland. We can walk in amongst the trees instead of just having to take off little forays off the path. So we'll have a little wander around here, see what we can find. There's been some forestry work going on here, which may or may not be detrimental to our objective. But we'll have a wander in amongst all of this stuff here, maybe cut across there and have a look and see what we can find. We've got some little things here. Not really sure what those are. The guild mushrooms of some sort. Not picking those though. I'm just going to have a look. Oh, so really slimy. Just going to have a look along these mossy banks, because these are often productive little areas. And kind of mossy, overgrown stumps like this. Mossy, decaying stumps and buried logs and so on. In particular, the fungus I'm looking for in this environment is the yellowleg chanterelle, or trumpet chanterelle. This just seems like the right place we might find it. But I'm not seeing very much of anything at the moment. It just, again, might not be the right kind of a year. Okay, right, these are hedgehog mushrooms. 1, 2, 3 of them. So that's a good sign. Quite immature specimens. There's another one over there. I'm just going to make sure before we start picking them that there's plenty of these around. So we might come back for those in a minute. Right, more hedgehog mushroom here. Really wonky looking specimen, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I see something else over there that might be promising, and Jenny's pointing at something. So it looks like we're picking hedgehog mushrooms today. So let's just have a look at what those look like. So instead of gills, they have these little forester spines underneath the cap. I'm just going to cut off the worst of the dirt off of those. Yeah, I think we'll have that one as well. It's a really kind of misshapen looking specimen because it's growing right underneath a log here. But they are often a bit on the wonky side anyway. So there we go, hedgehog mushrooms, success. That's another hedgehog down there, but a kind of little weedy and rather eaten up one. These also look like, yep, hedgehog mushrooms. So there's some growing straight out of the moss here on this tree. There's some underneath those branches. Oh, I can see more in there. I can see a rather nice one under here. Oh, I thought it was a nice one, but that one's been really munched. So I think we'll leave that one. That one's been really eaten up, or possibly damaged by these needles blowing on it actually, but that one's really damaged on the top there. That one's been knocked over, but it's still good. And this one here, pretty good. And this one, beautiful. As indeed is that one. Oh, that's a very funny shape. Okay. So it looks like today's dinner is going to be hedgehog mushrooms. So I'll just show you, there's a slightly atypical specimen because these got orangey caps, and that's probably on account of where they're growing underneath something, but that's not uncommon to find them looking like that. I can see lots of little ones in there. Going to leave the small ones to develop a bit further. So Jenny spotted these are deceivers, not amethyst deceivers, but they are related to. Amethyst deceiver is here. These are just some other species of Laccaria. I can see some more amethyst deceivers down there. These are edible, but there is this thing about them bioaccumulating arsenic, which makes a lot of people very wary of them. So I probably won't pick them. It looks like we won't need to, because there are some lovely hedgehog mushrooms around that we can forage instead. Oh, sulphur tuft there. You can see something over here which I think is another hedgehog. Yeah. Now a bit on the small side, that one. I think we'll leave that one. But we'll have a wander up through here. So not quite what I expected to find today, although I'm not surprised to find hedgehog mushrooms here in this season. But what I was really looking for was the yellow leg chanterelles. But there's still everything to play for. We might find those in a moment. I can see something over here. Let's have a look and see what this is. I don't think this is an edible one, but I can see, well, there's a white amanita there, possibly destroying angel or something like that. Yeah, this is more sulphur tuft here. Ah, and I see yellow legs. Here we go. This is the yellow leg chanterelle. And I can see more of them over there and over there on this decaying wood. So we're in there. I can see a red russula there as well, possibly the beechwood sickener, this one. So we won't be picking that one, but yeah, most likely, since we are under beechwood, that is the beechwood sickener. Anyway, I think we will have some of these yellow legs. This is interesting. So this is a wood ant nest that is now dormant here, this pile of pine needles and bark and so on. And there's a really, really healthy colony of amethyst deceivers on here, on this ant's nest. As I say, I'm not going to pick them because I don't really need to. I have eaten them in the past. And I'm not especially worried about the notional arsenic risk, because for one thing, it's not like I eat them every day, but also it's not like this is a mining area or anything like that where there would be an abundance of arsenic in the soil. There is always some arsenic in soil, or nearly always, but it's not like there would be an overabundance of it here. So I can be reasonably confident that we're not going to find that we wouldn't have a huge concentration of arsenic in the mushrooms. But since there are other things to pick, we might as well have those. So these little mossy dells like this are sometimes productive for chanterelles. I see another hedgehog mushroom there, but rather poor looking specimen. Okay, there's another hedgehog. That's kind of the minimum size I would pick, really. They do tend to crumble when they're picked, these mushrooms. They are a bit brittle and fragile. That's one of the reasons I pick into a basket rather than a bag. Another rather munched russula there. Hard to say what that was. Could be the charcoal burner. That's a bit on the purple side for the charcoal burner. But russulas are really difficult to tell apart. But none of them are deadly in the family russula. So as long as you're looking at a russula, there is a taste test thing you can do where basically as long as it tastes, well, as long as it doesn't taste bitter or peppery, they are supposedly safe to eat. I've never really been brave enough to try the taste test, although I do believe it, of course. One day I will, if I find some really decent looking russulas. The only thing you have to be very certain of is that you have actually got russulas. But they are quite an easy group of fungi to identify. Right, well, this is pine woods over here, so different kind of environment, so I don't know that we'll go very far into that. I think we'll head along this way now. There's a little pale, very pale yellow Amanita here, probably Amanita citrina, the false death cap. So not finding a vast amount of stuff here, and I think that might just be what the kind of a year it is. Conditions in any particular year are so variable, and the fungi just fruit when they want to fruit. So, you know, it's a very much luck of the draw thing. We have definitely got enough there for a meal though, so let's not be downhearted. Sometimes these little mossy hummocks like this, that's probably once a tree stump, sometimes they can be productive, but nothing there at the moment. It may be just a little bit too early because the hedgehog fungi and the yellowlegs are both autumn winter species, so it could be that, you know, another few weeks and you won't be able to move without tripping over them here. This is more like it, so still undersized, but we've got a nice troop of hedgehog mushrooms here going through here. I shan't pick them all. You can see another one over there. Jenny's just yelled from behind me that she's found something as well. So this is a bit more like it. Now they are rather beaten up specimens, but still perfectly good for the table. I will pick judiciously. I'm only going to pick the larger ones. Smaller ones I will leave to develop. Right, and you need two hands for this anyway, so we're not going to fill the basket to overflowing, but we are going to do okay today. Another white Amanita there, and I'm 90% certain that is a destroying angel. I see something else over here though, which Jenny has already spotted. Looks like another little troop of hedgehog fungi. Not very big ones, again, and rather battered. Oh, do you know what? We've got plenty in the basket. I think these ones deserve to be left alone. Okay, well, I think we've done good. And I hope it's, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to disclose the exact location here. Let's get these mushrooms back to Shrimp Cottage and see what we can make. Now, nice as these hedgehog mushrooms are, This is a fungus that brings a little bit more of the forest floor in with it than perhaps some other species of fungus. I've got this little mushroom brush that's on this. This is actually a mushroom knife. Didn't use this one today. I used a different knife, which is specifically for brushing little bits of forest floor off. Didn't do that actually while we were out there. Probably should have. Anyway, I'm going to get some of these cleaned up. That's all they need. I'm not even going to attempt to wash them because all of these little spines here would tend to wash off anyway. And you just end up washing dirt into them if not. So anyway, that's how we clean them. So also worth noting that with these mushrooms, sometimes they've actually grown around bits of debris. And so sometimes cleaning them does actually entail scraping off a little bit of the fungus to get at the dirt that's, or sometimes it's not dirt, sometimes it's like a strand of moss or something like that that gets embedded in the fungus. Now, because I'm invariably scraping off bits of the fungus here, including spore-bearing structures or bits of the fungus on which spores may have settled, I'm going to collect up all these little bits and I'll go and scatter that in our own woodland. But yeah, so sometimes you find little bits get embedded or trapped in the folds that this mushroom creates as it grows, because it's a very uneven looking mushroom. It starts off as a fairly neat capped mushroom, and as it grows and develops, it gets more and more wavy and contorted, and those waves and contortions will tend to trap bits of detritus. See there, it's fine, most of that will just brush out. Whatever doesn't brush out we'll just trim out with a knife. And I do apologize to anyone if you're distressed by the idea of not washing these mushrooms. The usual concern is that wild animals may have done their business on them, and of course that is the nature of the outdoors, although it's perhaps not as big a problem as you might imagine. It's not like the entire countryside is drenched in urine or anything like that, but it's a thing. It's not enough of a thing to make me want to ruin these mushrooms by washing them. But we should bear in mind also that these are going to be cooked. So any actual, biological risk that might be attached to that is going to be mitigated by cooking. Just want to get the grit out, really, any bits that might be gritty. One thing I've never found with these mushrooms is I've never found a maggot in any one of them. I don't think this is a species that is attractive to fungus gnats or any of those kind of insects that infest other species of mushrooms. Never once had a problem with that with hedgehog mushrooms, even though you do find holes in them, so things do eat them. Woodlice perhaps, slugs, snails. So if you find a deep hole such as I have found here, it's just worth investigating, making sure that there's nothing still inhabiting that. So we are ending up with some lovely clean mushrooms and all of these bits, and these bits are going to go in the woods. So that's probably enough for today's dinner. There's probably about the same amount left in the basket there, which we'll have tomorrow. These yellow leg mushrooms, the only thing we really need to do there to clean these is just peel apart the stem, because they've got a hollow stipe or stem, and that can sometimes harbour little bugs and beasties. And that's going to be the basis of today's dinner. And these I'll just put in a cold room. I'll put these in the utility room where they'll be nice and cold, and they'll stand until tomorrow. So, big old beech tree here. We'll just scatter these around. Let them take their chances there. And hopefully, you know, we might have introduced enough spores for these things to take hold. You never know. Importantly, this is not a species that is parasitic on the beech tree. So, you know, I wouldn't want to necessarily introduce anything that's going to attack this tree and cause it to decay and fall down. Anyway, we'll see what happens. I doubt that will really make any difference, but you never know. So we've got these gorgeous, fresh and now clean wild mushrooms to use. I was going to make it a kind of pancake thing. Very often what I do with hedgehog fungus is put them in a kind of stuffed pancake in a creamy, cheesy sauce or something like that. I'm going to do something a bit like that, but not pancakes. I've got these part-baked rolls. This is from Lidl. I thought what we'll do is we'll make something that's kind of carbonara adjacent, but also Welsh rarebit adjacent. So we're going to cook the mushrooms with a bit of bacon in a cheesy sauce with egg in the sauce, and then stuff these rolls and bake them in the oven. So first off, bacon. Actually, guanciale, left over from the carbonara video. So what I'm going to do here is just cut the rind off of that carefully. I did, by the way, also taste test independently. I haven't done it on video. The difference between guanciale and speck, because speck is another, well, northern Italy, you know, Alpine region kind of cured pork. If you can't get guanciale for carbonara, I would say speck is a better substitute than, say, pancetta, just because it has a similar fat content and a very similar flavour. So actually what we're going to do here, we'll have a bit of guanciale and we'll have a slice of speck. Yeah, and as you can see, really quite similar. This is made from pork loin, I think. This is made from cheek. So they are different cuts. Quite similar. This is not quite as fatty as that, but this is a fairly leanish example of speck. Anyway, we're going to have a slice of speck as well. So we'll cut both of these up into lardons and get them sizzling away in the pan until they're crispy. And when I say pan, you bet I mean the Vision pan, which we're still experimenting with. I've used this a fair few times since the video where I unboxed this, and I'm really quite impressed with this. It definitely cooks bacon really well, mainly because I think the radiant heat from this ceramic hob goes straight through the glass and you're basically grilling the bacon in the pan. So this won't sizzle when it hits the pan, because the pan isn't the thing that gets hot here, it's the food. But there we go, that's already starting to render and sizzle. So from experience, that means it's already time to turn this pan down. Turn it down to about 4. A couple of nice spring onions. And we'll go for all of the white bits and most of the firm green bits. These leafy bits here we'll save as a garnish. Then this bacon, by which I mean guanciale and speck, already starting to go crispy. A lot of fat has rendered out of that. I think at this point those onions can go in. And now the mushrooms, and I'm just going to break these up by hand into pieces, kind of quickly crumble them in. Now these have got quite a lot of moisture in them, so what's going to happen here is these will start to stew in their own juice, which is absolutely what I want, because that will also pick up the fond that was developing on the pan. So actually I'm going to put about half a glass of water in there, maybe a bit less. And now we're just going to bring the heat back up and let that just simmer. And this method of cooking mushrooms, where you kind of fry then stew then fry, develops a huge amount of flavour out of the mushrooms, even with shop bought mushrooms. There's something about the process of boiling these mushrooms a little bit, or stewing them a little bit in some liquid, and then letting that evaporate and soak back into the mushrooms, develops an amazing flavour. Anyway, so we're going to leave that to sizzle away while I make the sauce. And that sauce is going to be 2 whole eggs, Burford Browns, my favourite, and then some pecorino, a couple of spoons of creme fraiche. We'll just whisk that together. Also, some cheddar. You might need to switch to a different whisk now. So let's just see how that's coming together. Pretty good. I think we'll have a little bit more pecorino in there just for some punchy flavour. Okay, there we go. And I also fancy just a little pinch of dried herbs in there. So as you can see, what's happening here is these mushrooms are gently simmering away. They've shrunk down a whole lot. Mushrooms do that anyway. But also all of that flavour that's coming out of them, this broth, which is part of this dark colour is the fond off of the pan, but part of it is the broth that's come out of these mushrooms. Basically, the reason this fry method makes tasty mushrooms is you just end up cooking them for a lot longer. And what you're doing is breaking down the cells in the mushrooms, releasing all the amino acids and stuff, which is flavour. I need that to be completely dry before I combine it with the sauce. So, this is my cunning plan with these bread rolls. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but we will see. So, these little pans, don't want anything to stick in here, so I'm just going to smear some butter around the pan, like this. That's good. And then my plan is to try to cut these rolls halfway through, just through the bottom crust, and then open it up. Okay, like that. Rest that inside that dish, and then the filling is going to go into there. That kind of works. I think we got away with it. Back over here at the cooker, most of that moisture is gone now, and the sound is changing from bubbling to sizzling. So I'm just going to give that, I've turned it down a little bit. I'll just give it a little bit longer just to drive off some more moisture. Now somebody may be wondering, where's the salt? Someone always does. Guanciale and speck, both quite salty cuts of cured pork. So there's the salt. Oh, somebody asked in the comments on the Vision Pan video, doesn't the handle get hot? No, it doesn't. That end is barely warm. That end's actually still cold. In many ways, that's a way of saying that this is not a good material for cooking on surfaces that rely the heat to be conducted through the pan. But this is a ceramic hob where it heats by radiating the heat, and the heat comes straight through and heats the food directly. Although these pans do eventually heat up, and this one is now retaining, this is off the heat now, and that's still going to continue frying in the heat that's stored in this ceramic material. So anyway, that comes off the heat now. My green bits of spring onion, I'm just slice up now. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to divide this into 4. We'll stuff it inside the bread. So that is literally a case of, you know, spread it out in the pan like that. Divide it in half. Divide it in half again, and there we go. We've got 4 relatively equal portions. So each one of these is going to go into one of these bread rolls. I was going to mix this in with that egg sauce, but actually I don't think there's any reason to, because we're going to bake this now in the oven. I'm just going to put the mushroom bits in there, and we'll pour the liquid sauce over the top. I found actually with this bread, in the end, if you cut a little circular plug out of the bottom of the bread, then cut the X, it's a lot easier to get your finger in there and open these up. I'm still not sure how this is going to come out, but we'll see. It's fun to experiment. I'm sure, even if it doesn't look great, it's going to taste good. Because, well, these pieces of mushroom, they're cooked now, so... So hedgehog mushroom is an incredibly well flavoured mushroom. Really rich mushroomy flavour. The flesh of the mushroom stays nice and firm. It, even after cooking, it's got a really nice bite to it. I hesitate to call it meaty. I don't think it is meaty, actually. It's just really mushroomy. Right, then this egg and cheese mixture. Then this egg, cheese and cream mixture is going on top. Just about works out right, I think. Then a little bit of this green spring onion on top, like that. And then, you know, because why wouldn't you? A bit more cheese. Okie dokie. So that is now going to go into the oven at 180 Celsius fan oven, 20 minutes or so, until the egg is completely cooked through, the bread goes crispy, everything else just comes together. I will probably use a temperature probe to probe down in the inside, make sure they're completely cooked through. So I'm just dressing this salad. This is a little salad I made from shredded lettuce and spinach, grated carrot, sliced radish, and dressed with some of my blackberry and elderberry balsamic, bit of olive oil, lemon juice, tiny bit of honey, and then to emulsify it, normally you'd use mustard. Jenny can't have a lot of shop-bought mustard because it contains sulfites and she's deathly allergic. So to emulsify this, I used peanut butter, which will give it an interesting nutty flavour, I'm sure. In fact, why don't we taste a little bit? Now, of course, if you had a peanut allergy, that would be a dreadful idea. But Jenny has the other allergy, sulfites. Oh, that's good. My timer has just gone. It's time to retrieve those things from the oven. Well, they look pretty good. Just going to probe them in the middle. So yeah, we've got 80, 85, 90 Celsius in the middle. That's plenty cooked. So let's just see what these look like. Well, really lovely and crispy and toasty on those edges. They have kind of met my expectations. I'm just going to let them cool a little bit because at the moment, cheesy, bacony, mushroomy napalm. While we're waiting for these to cool down, I should say actually it's around about this time in one of these kind of recipes where I just make it up as I go along that I start to wonder if this thing already exists and already has a name. So if this dish already exists, is this like a mushroom croustade? Do let me know in the comments, and I'll put the name of the dish in the video description if it'll fit. Okay, well, time for plating up. Let's see if it comes out the dish. It does indeed. And then we'll just have a little bit of this winter salad on the side. So there we go. That is my wild mushroom, I'm going to say wild mushroom croustade. I think that's gone pretty well, but we'll just briefly go over to the dining table on a slightly worse quality camera. Okay, well, here it is. I have a feeling that actually, well, this might either be knife and fork, or it might be a case of cut it into wedges and pick it up. So I'm going to try that. It is incredibly hot in the middle, so do beware. The eggy bits are soaked into the bread and then baked. So it is a bit like a quiche, but with a bread crust instead of a pastry crust. Oh, they taste very good.
Mm.
You like it?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And if one isn't enough, there's another couple of them outside. Well, a success, and just nice to have something foraged. So a couple of quick after dinner addenda. Firstly, I believe, yes, this is a croustade. So I didn't invent anything here. I just made something up as I went along and invented something that already exists. That probably happens more than I realise. But anyway, recipe notes for future shrimp. We could put more liquid in that egg mix. So there was only the 1 tablespoonful of creme fraiche in there. We could put a little bit of milk or some more cream in there because it did set quite firm. So I think we could have done more liquid, more like the filling of a quiche, and have it soak into the bread and be more full and a little bit more tender perhaps, a little bit more tender and creamy perhaps. So recipe notes for future shrimp there. These were nice enough as they are though, I've got to say, and these two are reserved for a midnight snack for me and Jenny. So that's my wild mushroom thing. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.